Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, and I'm back with a Dark Shadows video on this Michael Myers Monday. I may do a Halloween video here later on. It depends on how I'm feeling. So I'm here to do a Jeremiah Collins character retrospective from the original. In Dark Shadows, there's a lot of interesting things to take into consideration, and one of the biggest things that if you're not familiar with DS and really not familiar with the Collins family, the one thing you got to understand with this is portraits matter. Okay. Burke Devlin stresses that he wants a portrait from the waist high like the Collins family. And it's interesting because keep in mind later on, when Burke gets recast, when they recast Burke Devlin, when Anthony George replaces Mitchell Ryan, that he ends up playing Jeremiah Collins. Now, the first time we really hear about Jeremiah is through Roger. Roger Collins says about Jeremiah Collins, and it's really interesting how this conversation comes about because it's not initially about Jeremiah, but it is about the widows of Widows Hill, and Roger says that when their ancestor Jeremiah Collins, and that's the thing too. Keep in mind, he doesn't say Joshua. He says clearly Jeremiah Collins. When he built this house, built the great house on top of Widows Hill, the widows weren't welcomed. He made them go away. It's interesting that Jeremiah Collins, in every way, is sort of made the scapegoat, and I'll get into that. I do want to get back to the portrait here in a second. So Jeremiah Collins, we're getting the perception from Roger that Jeremiah Collins was a bit of a cruel man. That he only he more cared about his family and his family's legacy and stuff. And now we're gonna come to find out that's not the case. That's not really who Jeremiah is. But before we do, it's really it's painted that Jeremiah Collins has helped build this family's legacy. It's when Carolyn comes into the drawing room, she's looking right at the portrait of Jeremiah Collins, and she says the word "big shot." And you might think that that's a throwaway line, but in many ways, I don't think it is. I think in every way, shape, and form, Jeremiah Collins is built as the big shot of the Collins family in every way. He's built as the person who built the great house. Now we all know later on that's not, to be clear, he did help with the construction of this house, but he wasn't the person who had this house constructed. Joshua was. That's something that doesn't get said until way, way later on. And we're led to believe for a long while that Jeremiah Collins is the person that has the great house constructed and built, that he has that house built on top of Widows Hill. Remember Roger's story about the widows. Jeremiah drove them away. Now, and that Jeremiah was, the reason they were told to leave. And Roger says the widows never left. They just jumped. They jumped to their death. When you insert the story of Jeremiah Collins, when you look at the core of the story, here's this story about this man. We're led to believe that he's this cruel, somewhat sadistic, and somewhat mean man. And we're also led to believe that he drove his wife to jump, that he's the reason Josette jumped off Widow's Hill. Again, Dark Shadows, what's so great about it is it's full of deceit. And it's not deceit that's it's not deceit that pisses you off. It's deceit that you need to siphon through. Basically, and this is what I love about DS. Dark Shadows has always had a touch of Val Lewton. It really has, ever since its inception. Val Lewton always let the audience decide, hey, it's up to you to decide what's really going on here. And I think Dark Shadows has always done this, really. It's up to you to sort of siphon through what's really going on in Collinsport, or even Collinwood, or even with the Collins family. It's up to you, the audience. What do you think's going on here? And I love that because, again, Dark Shadows is one of the best open to interpretation series ever. It really is. To me, it's the best. I was saying one of the best. I'm trying to be fair to others. But to me, it's the best. And simply because of this, right here. Here's Jeremiah Collins, and you're getting told a lot of things about it. You're getting told subtle things, but really, in many ways, you're sort of getting told a lot because Roger is saying, hey, this guy had this house constructed. Okay, that's one lie we're going to know that's false. He didn't have the house constructed, his brother did. All right. And then, Carolyn calls him a big shot. Well, what made him a big shot? Well, what made him a big shot wasn't just constructing that house, it was marrying Josette Collins. And we're told in the Collins family history book that was always meant to be the case, that Jeremiah and Joshua were always meant to be wed. Guess what? That's not the case. They weren't always meant to be wed. Barnabas and Josette were. And it doesn't, again, I've said this to people who want to get into Dark Shadows. When you get into Dark Shadows and you're looking at that Collins family history book and they're quoting it, do not take it for verbatim. Don't take it as complete fact because there's a lot of misinformation in there. Again, you sort of need to be the one who's siphoning through the information. Like, wait a minute, is that... You sort of have to wait and see. Not just wait and see, but listen to what's really being said. They're telling you, hey, this happened, this happened, this happened. And, you could be Victoria Winters and take some of it at face value or sort of be skeptical. And I don't even really think that Victoria Winters wanted to take it at face value, but I think she did out of respect. Do I blame her? No. Again, you don't know this family's lineage and complete history, so you can't call bullshit on them. And really, Vicky's biggest rude awakening is, 1795 itself. Now, before we ever meet Jeremiah Collins, we obviously meet Barnabas Collins. And now, keep in mind, in the Phoenix arc, we don't hear Laura say she knew Jeremiah, but you sort of get that sense now, because even more so now when you go back, because Laura knew Josette. So if Laura knew this, again, before we know Barnabas Josette knew Josette, someone else knew Josette while she was alive, and it was Laura. So, and it makes you wonder why. Well, if the legend is Jeremiah married Josette, well, again, who else did Jeremiah marry? We obviously know that in the history book, and this is sort of where things go crazy, Jeremiah married Laura. Now, it's funny because when me and my buddy Patrick McCray, shout out to him, when we were doing our Mitchell Ryan tribute, he had asked me, do I think Burke is David's father? And I said yes. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. And here's my thing too with this. Does it really, if Laura's coming for David, if Laura's coming for her son, does it really matter who the father is? No, it doesn't. She's still coming for her kid. It's still her son. It doesn't matter if it's 100 years. It's still her kid. But so again, the does the father really play a factor in who the Phoenix targets? No, I don't think it does. I just think, hey, if I had a kid to you, I'm coming back and claiming him in the eternal flame. It's not good. So we know that Jeremiah married Laura, and that's how Josette sort of knows her. And it's also how Barnabas knows Laura, right? That Barnabas in 1897 talks about Laura. Hey, you married my uncle, and he remembered her. So it's really interesting that Barnabas and Jeremiah they look the same age, right? So, but it's implied that Barnabas was, again, he's supposed to be younger than Jeremiah. Again, Jeremiah is his uncle. So I gotta believe Barnabas was like, Laura implies he was a kid. Um, I'm gonna say 12, 13 here. That, and 12, and Jeremiah was maybe 16, 17. I'll give that gap. I'll give the space. So, if you disagree with the age difference, please do, 'cause it's gonna vary anyway. Um, and really, once Jeremiah, obviously that doesn't last, right? Jeremiah and Laura don't last. So it makes you, and keep in mind, this sort of plays into 1795. Jeremiah does not seem like somebody who's wanting to get married in 1795 when you think about it. And again, I'm not saying he should. By all means, he shouldn't. We know that Jeremiah and Josette being engaged is one big lie. Keep in mind, Josette, it's written, Josette is there to marry Jeremiah. That's complete and utter bullshit. We know that Josette is there to marry Barnabas. That's who she's engaged to. So when we see Victoria back in 1795, and we see we hear the shock of the lifetime that, hey, Barnabas is engaged to Josette's engaged to Barnabas. This marriage is supposed to happen. That's what Victoria is also shocked about. Like, wait a second, that's not right. And it's what Victoria doesn't realize is the history book is a lie. It's written as a lie. Some of it anyway. The Victoria believes that Jeremiah and Josette were always meant to be married. And why shouldn't she? She's not a part of this timeline. She's not a part of 1795 originally. She has no idea. She wants to. Yeah, she knows the Collins family members lie, but she's trying to forgive and forget. She's a much, by this time, Victoria is as much part of this family as anyone else. And that is stressed prior to 1795. So when she goes back, she feels like one of them. She feels like a member of that family. So she doesn't want to, like, oh, wait a second. It's a, she does say this can't be right, but at the same time, she's not so much questioning the history book. She's questioning, hey, why are things so wrong here? Why, what's up? So again, this does not help her with her witchcraft trial. God, that poor woman. So we're told, we're told a lot, right? I've been stressing this. So here's Jeremiah in 1795. And again, he doesn't look like somebody who's wanting to get married or someone who's even rushing into marriage. Even when you listen to 1795, even the mention of marriage, even though it's to his own cousin Millicent, is sort of detesting to him and disdaining to him because he's already been down the marriage rabbit hole and he has not liked it. Again, the reason Jeremiah and Josette get married, and people who are fans of DS know this, but for those who don't, him and Josette get put under a spell by Angelique. So again, prior to that spell, Jeremiah was not even looking for a bride, let alone seeking a bride. And you might say, well, where did the conversation of a bride come into play prior to Angelique? Really, the person who really initially pushes Jeremiah to get married again is his brother, Joshua. Again, Lewis Edmonds, Joshua Collins, who's played by the late, great Lewis Edmonds, which, again, Joshua Collins is my favorite Lewis Edmonds character. I love how he portrayed him. Um, all time. I think it's just so fantastic. 1795 is full of great characters too, just like 1897, and Joshua is one of my favorites. Yes, he's a jerk. Yes, he's a very, very jerkful person. But Lewis Edmonds steals 1795 for me. Um, Love his performance as Joshua Collins, as Barnabas's dad, Jeremiah's brother. Again, so Jeremiah's brother, Joshua, is pushing him to get married to Millicent, who's his cousin. And again, Jeremiah just, he wants nothing to do with not just her, but he's not, Jeremiah isn't smooching after women. He's not even really smooching after Victoria. He more feels sorry for Victoria. Like he even realized, oh, you lost somebody. So he gets her sense of loss. And I've looked like somebody you lost, do I? And she said, yes. So he understands her. He feels sorry for her, but he's not soughting after her either. It's not like he's jumping into Victoria's arms or Victoria's jumping into his. No, that's not the case. So Jeremiah, when you get to 1795 and you get to Jeremiah Collins, this is not a man who's looking for a bride or looking to become a groom himself. By no means. Until the spell gets cast. Until the spell between him and Josette gets cast. And then they get married. And it really is just a it's just a sudden thing. It's just something that literally happens. And so to cover that fact, to cover this, look, the family knows, the Dupre family and the Collins family know Barnabas is supposed to marry Josette. So that didn't happen. Here's Jeremiah. He's married to Josette. Okay, Joshua's got to cover for his brother. So what does he do? He completely rewrites. He completely writes history on the spot by saying, "Nope, Josette came to Collinwood to marry Jeremiah, my brother," and it's one of the best, well-placed lies in the Collins family history book. It's a lie no one questions. Again, because, and I think no one questions it for a lot of reasons. Number one, Jeremiah was already married. Number two, I think, you know, amongst the family, especially, people knew Joshua. Again, Joshua wasn't standing in the way of Barnabas and Josette getting married. I don't want people to think that that was the case. No. Prior to the spell getting cast, what you got to keep in mind is Joshua just isn't, yes, he's supportive, even though I know he doesn't show it at times. Yes, Joshua is supportive of his son getting married in his own way. But at the same time, he's also pushing for his brother to get married to his cousin. Again, he's pushing for two weddings at the same time. Like, you marry her over here, and it feels like Joshua Collins is like a traffic cop. You get married over here, you get married to her over there. Yeah, by the way, that's actually, he's gonna marry her. That's a little fun tidbit for you. Um, so again, Joshua is pushing for marriage, is pushing for one marriage, while another one is he knows another one's going to take place. So when Jeremiah does indeed get married to Josette instead of Millicent, Joshua just arranges it that, hey, Josette was always going to marry Jeremiah, and no one questions it. No one questions it. And no, the Dupre family do nothing to correct it. They don't correct Joshua. They don't correct anyone in town. They do not do that. It's this is fact now. Even though we know it's not true. Even though as DS fans we know that was not the case. Now this is cemented in Collins family history. This is fact. Nothing else matters. Nothing else. So Jeremiah, the question becomes: is Jeremiah Collins really the heel that he gets made out to be? And the answer is no, he's not. When you think about it, Jeremiah Collins for a long while is the ultimate scapegoat. Even Barnabas, I've talked about this a bit. Barnabas says that Josette was running from her lover, and they say, and Victoria and Carolyn say Jeremiah, and Jonathan Fritz Barnabas, yes. He doesn't want to say no, it was him. He doesn't want to say, oh, I was chasing her. No, he implies Jeremiah was chasing her, or they imply it, and he just confirms it. So Jeremiah, but not just by Roger, but by Barnabas, sort of get made out to not just be a bit of a heel, but a bit of a scapegoat. And in many ways, he is. I mean, for a long time, Jeremiah Collins gets set up to be the sort of scapegoat and sort of set up to be what Joshua is. So instead of them saying Joshua, they say Jeremiah built the great house. Jeremiah drove the widows from the hill. He told them to get off the property once he built that house. Really, he didn't. It was Joshua who did all that. And that's something I take away. Also, Jeremiah, again, this isn't somebody who was looking to get married in 1795. He had been there, he had done that, he had gotten married to Laura, and he did not love, again, he did not love going down that rabbit hole. So he wasn't somebody who was looking to get married in 1795. Again, this is why Jeremiah is scoffing at Millicent, and I know I'm repeating myself, so I apologize. So Jeremiah Collins, it gets wrote. Remember, Jeremiah's death does not really get publicized a lot. I mean, in every way, it, it doesn't, the duel doesn't exist in the Collins family history book. It doesn't. There's no duel. There's no mention of a duel. It's we're the descendants of Jeremiah Collins, and it's funny, they're really not. They're more the descendants of Daniel Collins. Daniel is the one who um, becomes the new heir of the Collins family after Joshua raising him. So really, Jeremiah, yes, he not only gets made the ultimate scapegoat, he sort of gets made the ultimate man on this high pedestal who was this cruel businessman. And in fact, he wasn't. It was his brother Joshua. Now, to be clear, yes, Jeremiah was a part of the business. In every way, Joshua ran the business, Jeremiah was his partner, and Barnabas worked underneath his father and his uncle. And he had a more of a relationship with his uncle than his own father, because his father was a dick. Um, Joshua is something else. When I say Joshua is something else, he really is. It's like, wow, you're a dad. Yes, yes. Somebody slept with you. Oh my god. The fact that somebody gave that man two kids is amazing. Naomi. So again, when you look at Jeremiah Collins and you look at the portrait, does it live up? I think yes. Quite simply, yes. Here's Jeremiah, even though a lot of his legend is built around a really complex lie. Again, the complex lie isn't that Jeremiah marries Josette. That's not a lie. Yes, Jeremiah does marry Josette. That does happen. The complex lie is this: it was always meant to happen. That's where the lie sticks out. No, it wasn't meant to happen. It wasn't meant to be. This was not a marriage. Josette did not come to Collinsport looking to marry Jeremiah, nor was Jeremiah looking for a bride. And that's a little deciphering, really, that if you're not a Dark Shadows fan and you're looking to get into the series, that you really need to decipher that, hey, yes, they got married. Yes, they did get married, but no, this was not an initial planned marriage. This was not Josette did not come to America seeking to marry Jeremiah. She came to America seeking to marry Jeremiah's nephew, Barnabas. And that's really one of the bigger, lies that get told in the Collins family history book. The biggest lie is Josette always was to come to marry Jeremiah. And that's what's written in there, really. And, now we know Josette jumps off Widow's Hill. And yes, it is written that Josette jumped off Widow's Hill, took her own life. It doesn't list why, it doesn't list a witch did it. Josh was not going to own to that. if you, if you think Josh was going to own that a witch killed somebody, you haven't been paying attention to this video. Um, no, he's not. He's not going to own that. His pride will not allow him, which again is really interesting. Uh, I think Joshua really had no alternative, and he didn't. He really had no alternative but to sort of not just make his brother sort of a bit of a scapegoat, but to make his brother the person who carried the flag of the Collins family. And he did that in many ways out of respect for what he knew had happened. He felt, again, here's a man who Joshua Collins loves control, and here's a man who had lost all of that. And that was really, yes, family, even though he doesn't show it to the end, family does matter to Joshua, but control matters just as much. It's sort of on par, equal, I would say. I wouldn't say one's above the other, even though he does do this a lot with the control at first. It sort of evens out in the end, in my opinion, anyway. If you disagree, please do. Jeremiah Collins is really an interesting character. Now, he gets brought up from the grave. Do I sort of wish they would have had Jeremiah's ghost, zombie, wraith, whatever you want to call it, sort of haunt Collinsport a lot more? I do. I do. I mean, we get Jeremiah when Vicky come. We get Jeremiah out of the grave in 1795, and we get Jeremiah out of the grave a bit when Vicky comes back from the past. But I sort of wish we would have got that a lot more with Dark Shadows, especially with Jeremiah, because again, he's somebody who got put under a spell. He's somebody who uh, you know was killed in vain. Really, I mean, he's killed in a duel by his own nephew. It's amazing. It's amazing. What a character. Really, I mean, Jeremiah Collins is one of the most interesting and intriguing characters. And I hope I've been informative and incisive. I'm sorry if this has gone long. I wanted to make a good, long Return Dark Shadows video for you guys. So, guys, have a happy Michael Myers Monday, and I'll see you later.